Hello, greetings from Ghana. By way of all of us benefiting, this is recorded so that it's posted and shared. Today we focus on ethical theories. The contents will include ethics in accountants, to consequential and non-consequential theories of ethics. 3. Ethical theories of relativism and absolutism. 4. Kohlberg's stages of moral development. 5. Ethical decision-making models. Then perhaps a chapter review. If you are here and you have not considered subscribing, what are you waiting for? Subscribe here. We learn, we share, we add on. The aim of this module is to enable students to understand and apply tools and models to develop skills in strategic analysis, choice, and implementation. Students will become competent in the use of management information to measure and monitor strategic performance. A comprehensive review will be undertaken of good governance practice, all developed within applicable ethical frameworks. Evaluating complex scenarios will be a feature of the module based on complex data, financial and stakeholder analysis, including making recommendations. Students will be expected to apply concepts, principles, and theories from the knowledge and application levels of the content. So here in evaluating strategic objectives for a specified scenario, you have to analyze the key factors and drivers that influence strategic objectives. Here in ethics and strategy, the meaning of ethics. 2. Theories of ethics. 3. Business ethics across organizational functions. 4. Why ethical problems occur in business. 5. Ethics in the global economy. 6. Ethics, law, and illegal corporate behavior. 7. The core elements of ethical reform. 8. Analyzing ethical problems in business. 9. Model of ethical judgment. And 10. Ethics in accounting. A decision-making module. The content that ethics is an important topic for all accountants, whether employed in business, industry, or in practice. The concept introduces a number of theoretical perspectives on ethics and ethical models. By the end of this chapter, students will be able to 1. Define ethics and explain the descriptive, normative, and meta-ethics approaches to ethical behavior. 2. Distinguish between personal ethics, business ethics, and professional ethics. 3. Understand the importance of the study of ethics for accountants. 5. Explain and distinguish between consequential and non-consequential theories of ethics. 6. Explain the ethical theories of relativism and absolutism. 7. Summarize Kohlberg's stages of moral development. The next is to differentiate between deontological and teleological approaches to ethics. And finally, apply Tekker's 5-question model and the American Accounting Association model for ethical decision making. Ethics in accountants. We look at descriptive ethics, normative ethics, and meta-ethics, personal ethics, business ethics, and professional ethics, moral dilemmas, and acting in an ethical way. That's the moral philosophy. Descriptive ethics, normative ethics, and meta-ethics. We are going deeper. Don't forget to subscribe to. Ethics is about morality and acting in a way that is morally justified. It is concerned with the difference between right and wrong. There are 3 broad approaches to the study and analysis of ethics and ethical behavior. We have descriptive ethics, normative ethics, and meta-ethics, also known as analytic ethics. Descriptive ethics involves research into moral attitudes or positions of individuals and groups and their beliefs about what is right and wrong. As the term suggests, it describes ethical beliefs without trying to suggest what ethical values ought to be. On the other hand, normative ethics is probably the approach to ethics that most people are familiar with. It involves establishing moral standards and indicating what people should do that is right and why, and what aspects of behavior are wrong. It is an approach to ethics that takes a view about good and bad and what is of overriding importance in deciding how people should act in any given situation. We also have meta-ethics. Meta-ethics is a branch of analytic philosophy that explores the status, foundations, and scope of moral values, properties, and words, whereas the fields of applied ethics and normative theory focus on what is moral. Meta-ethics focuses on what morality itself is. Just as two people may disagree about the ethics of, for example, physician-assisted suicide, while nonetheless agreeing at the more abstract level of general normative theory, such as utilitarianism, so too may people who disagree at the level of a general normative theory nonetheless agree about the fundamental existence and status of morality itself, or vice versa. In this way, metaethics may be thought of as a highly abstract way of thinking philosophically about morality. For this reason, metaethics is also occasionally referred to as second-order moral theorizing, to distinguish it from the first-order level of normative theory. The Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Personal ethics, business ethics, and professional ethics. A look at it. Most individuals develop a sense of morality in a normative view of ethics and act in accordance with what they consider right and wrong. However, opinions about what is right and wrong can differ enormously. As an accountant, you need to be aware of 1. Personal ethics, 2. Business ethics, 3. Professional ethics. These are all defined below. Personal ethics. Personal ethics describes the intrinsic moral principles and values that govern an individual's interactions with others. Personal ethics is neither enforced nor required by a prescriptive code. It reflects one's inner views of morality, that is, what is right and wrong. Personal ethics are typically influenced by people's family, friends, experiences, culture, and religion. Business ethics. Business ethics describes the moral principles and values that guide how people and institutions behave in the world of commerce. Business ethics considers how the pursuit of self-interest, for example, profits, impacts others through the actions of individuals or firms within business. Some businesses, particularly large multinationals, develop a formal corporate code of ethics that provides a reference point for employees and other stakeholders' behavior. A business code of ethics will apply to all employees, whether they are members of a professional body and therefore subject to a code of professional ethics too or not. Professional ethics. Professional ethics describes the moral principles and values that govern behavior in the context of a particular profession, such as lawyers, accountants, architects, and doctors. Professional ethics are normally specified in a professional code of conduct that all members and students professing to be part of that profession must abide by. Adherence to an institute's professional code of conduct, such as The Institute of Chartered Accountants Code of Ethics is normally a requirement of membership and remains relevant throughout the professional's life, not just in the work environment. As noted above, ethics apply to organizations as well as individuals and groups of people. Companies might be driven purely by the profit motive, with all their actions determined by doing whatever is necessary to maximize profits. However, this may result in unethical behavior such as breaking the law, e.g., breach of copyright, using child labor, paying bribes, or disregarding employees' religious beliefs, e.g., requiring staff to work overtime on holidays. On the other hand, companies might recognize the need and the benefits of acting in an ethical way, which could lead to an improved reputation and increased sales. For example, a company may limit its supply chain to organizations that adhere to minimum ethical standards relating to the fair treatment of employees. Accountants, both students and qualified professionals, are expected to behave in accordance with professional codes of ethics and to maintain standards of moral behavior that are expected from a professional body. This remains fundamental to protecting the reputation of the profession, which ultimately is in the public interest. Personal ethics, business ethics, and professional ethics are all therefore relevant to how an accountant should behave. Typically, a professional code of ethics is the most onerous reference that an accountant must comply with at all times. Business ethics may help define the clients that an accountant is willing to deal with, or the business they may wish to be employed by outside of professional practice, as personal ethics are intrinsically ever-present. Awareness of an individual's morals and ethics will help them understand whether they are suited to a particular profession, industry, or company. For example, views differ around the morality and acceptability of gambling, the adults entertainment industry, tobacco, pharmaceutical companies that employ testing on animals, and nuclear power. Moral dilemmas. In practice, there are often pressures on an individual at work to bend the rules and act in a way that is not ethical. Unethical behavior must be illegal, but it is sometimes legal but immoral. Pressures to act unethically can create a moral dilemma. What is the right thing to do? That's the question to pose. Sometimes it is not clear what the right course of action should be. When an individual thinks that something might be wrong, he could be faced with a decision about what to do. Making a moral and ethical decision might not be easy, especially when colleagues or bosses do not agree with you and will not listen to what you have to say. Some individuals might take the view that when they are at work, they act according to a different set of rules and with a different moral outlook compared to what justify decisions or actions at work that are unethical on the grounds that business is different. However, this is not a view that accountants should necessarily take, because accountants, including both students and qualified accountants, are bound by professional codes of conduct such as the Institute of Chartered Accountants Code of Ethics at all times, not just in the work environment. In complying with codes of professional ethics, accountants should be prepared to make difficult choices if necessary when faced with an ethical or moral dilemma. Let's see a case of moral dilemma. An example. Two examples of moral dilemmas are: you know that a close colleague at work steals small items from the office and takes them home, such as a box of pens. Do you turn a blind eye because it is your colleague, or do you report the theft to your boss? Another one is: there is an urgent job that must be completed very quickly. You know that there should be a final check of the work before it is declared finished. This is no time to carry out the check if the work is to be completed within the required time. What do you do? Say that the checks have been carried out, or admit that the deadline for completion has not been met because the checks have not yet been carried out. Again, let's go again. There is an urgent job that must be completed very quickly. You know that there should be a final check of the work before it is declared finished. But there is no time to carry out the check if the work is to be completed within the required time. What do you do? Say that the checks have been carried out, or admit that the deadline for completion has not been met because the checks have not yet been carried out. Definition: ethical dilemma. An ethical or moral dilemma involves a conflict between two moral principles whereby it can be argued that both perspectives are fair and reasonable. Ethical dilemmas typically arise in situations whereby a particular action is likely to benefit one stakeholder without harming another. For example, a private hospital may need to close a particular department in order to save costs and increase profits, thus benefiting the stakeholders. However, the patients and community would suffer through the removal of the service. In summary, then, an ethical dilemma is a situation where guiding moral principles cannot unequivocally resolve the conflict and determine which course of action is right or wrong. It arises when there is difficulty in determining what the morally right or good course of action is. Let's see an example. Electronics exporter. You work as an accountant for a company that exports electronic equipment. You have been asked to prepare the export documents and invoice for an export order to a customer in country X. You are aware that the customer in country X is an agent for an organization in country Y. Because of a civil war in that country Y, your country's government has placed a complete ban on exports of goods to country Y. What should you do? The problem here is that you know or have a strong suspicion that your company is acting illegally. A decision to sell the equipment was taken by someone else in your company, and the company's management presumably know what they are doing. You are an employee of the company, so you might think you should get on with your job and do what you have been ordered. However, the action by a company in exporting goods to country Y through country X would probably be illegal and would certainly be unethical. Whatever action is appropriate for you to take, the option of doing nothing because it is none of your business is unsuitable and inappropriate. Accountants must deal with moral dilemmas when they arise, and doing nothing is not normally a satisfactory option. Acting in an ethical way, moral philosophy. As an accountant, you need to recognize the need to behave in an ethical way. If you do not intend to act ethically in your work, you do not deserve to be an accountant. There is a difference between facing a moral dilemma, where you have a choice between two courses of action and both can be justified morally, and a moral duty. Professional accountants have a moral duty to comply with their professional code of ethics. To understand how to ethically act, it is necessary to have some understanding of ethics, how ethical codes of behaviors are established and maintained. It is also useful to recognize a link between ethical behavior and good corporate governance. Good corporate governance is associated with integrity, honesty, and transparency. There are ethical qualities in business. Morality and ethics. It is also important to recognize that individuals and businesses have differing views about right and wrong. We might think that we know what is right, but others might disagree strongly. Differences in ethical views can be very large between different communities and cultures. For instance, there is a general agreement that some actions are wrong and unethical. It is wrong to steal and wrong to commit murder. Secondly, many individuals take the view that war is wrong, and others might think that war is sometimes necessary to achieve a desirable and morally worthwhile objective. There are strong differences of opinions on different moral issues, such as abortion, euthanasia, and medical research on animals. There are probably strong differences in opinion on many other issues. It is wrong for a government to torture a terrorist in order to obtain information that might reduce the risk of more terrorist attacks and deaths of civilians. It is wrong to tell a lie to your boss at work in order to protect a colleague from dismissal for a minor disciplinary offense. These examples might help to illustrate that what individuals might personally consider immoral might not be considered unethical from a different point of view. For example, you might believe that it is immoral for employers to make any employee redundant, but making workers redundant is not unethical in terms of business ethics. Ethics and the law. A distinction should also be made between ethics and the law. Breaking the law is generally considered unethical, although there may be an unpopular law that people in society think should be broken in some circumstances. However, unethical actions might not be illegal. For example, telling an untruth to your boss is unethical business practice, but in most cases it will not be illegal. Making employees work excessive hours every week will probably be judged unethical. It is illegal only if there is a law setting maximum limits on the number of hours that employees can be made to work. Why the study of ethics is important for today's accountants. The study of ethics is important to today's accountants due to the following. 1. Accountants must abide by professional codes of ethics due to membership of a professional accountancy body. Second, it is in the public interest that members of the public have confidence in the accountancy profession. This is necessary to help facilitate commerce and industry, promote growth and prosperity, and to help sustain a reliable and trustworthy economic mechanism. 3. Accountants must continue to be seen as ethical and independent for their opinion to be valued both within audits and advisory roles. 4. The study of ethics will help promote consistency in the ethical values and principles that can be expected of accountants. 5. Adherence to professional codes of ethics remains ever critical in protecting the reputation of the accountancy profession in light of the recent corporate scandals such as Enron and WorldCom and the general global financial crisis. Moral philosophy is concerned with explaining the nature of ethics and morality and with providing a moral conscience or justification for actions that are taken by individuals and organizations. The remainder of this chapter, or how it's used. The remainder of this chapter describes briefly the differing views of some moral philosophers. Next, we look at consequential and non-consequential theories of ethics, herein teleological theories and deontological theories. Professional accountants may be faced with ethical or moral decisions many times during their career. It is important to understand the issues that may be involved so that an appropriate decision is taken in each situation, and the accountant understands the ethical reason for the decision. There is an important distinction between 1. Consequential theories of ethics, which are also known as teleological theories, and 2. Non-consequential theories or deontological theories of ethics. We have a look at consequential theories or the teleological theories of ethics. Consequential theories of ethics are also known as teleological theories or results-based theory. This is the theory that of all the things that a person might do at any given moment, the morally right action is the one with the best overall consequences. Reference Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. According to this view, nothing is inherently wrong. It all depends on the outcomes or consequences. Whether something is right or wrong depends only on results. This means that faced with a moral dilemma, an individual should choose the action that will provide the best possible consequences or the least worst consequences. Individuals may not think about the consequences of their decisions or actions every time they are faced with a moral dilemma because they do not have the time. Instead, they might rely on a generally accepted view of what is right based on the normal outcomes from similar situations. For example, a person may choose not to tell a lie because there is a generally accepted view that telling lies is bad based on experience that lying usually has bad consequences. Utilitarianism on theory of consequential ethics is utilitarianism. This is the view that the morally correct decision in any situation is one that produces the best possible outcomes for people as a whole, that's for mankind. The aim should be to maximize well-being or utility for people. A look at ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is another theory of consequential ethics. But this takes the view that people should always do what is in their own best interests, not what is in the best interest of people generally. Consequential or teleological ethics and the profit motive. Teleological ethics can be used to justify the profit motive in business. It can be argued that when a business is profitable, many people benefit. Stakeholders and shareholders benefit from higher returns and dividends. Employees benefit from the employment that a profitable business provides. Customers benefit from the goods and services that a profitable business is able to provide that it would not be able to provide if it did not make a profit. The general public benefits from the benefits to the economy from profitable businesses and additional economic activity. Theological ethics can also be used to justify actions in business that might otherwise seem morally dubious or wrong, such as one, cutting costs, including making employees redundant; two, downsizing, which involves making people redundant; three, doing business in a country with a dubious political system, such as a tyrannical government. Main criticisms of consequential theories. These are that it is difficult often to predict in advance what the consequences of a decision or action might be. And two, it is a theory that can be used to justify acting in self-interest. Non-consequential theories of ethics are theories based on the view that what is right or wrong does not depend at all on the consequences of the action or decision. The term deontological theory of ethics is commonly used. Deon is a Greek word for duty. This approach to ethics is a duty-based approach. It is based on the view that certain moral obligations are self-evident and needs no further justification. Actions are inherently good or bad, regardless of their consequences, and a clear distinction can be made between right and wrong without considering consequences or utility. There are no exceptions to this view. The German philosopher Kant went as far as to say that It is wrong to lie, even if the lie would save a friend from murder. The deontological approach is therefore 1. Always do the right thing. 2. Do the right thing because it is right, regardless of the circumstances. 3. Do not do the wrong thing because it is always wrong. Ethics of duties. One aspect of the deontological approach to ethics is that a person has certain fundamental duties that he or she must always uphold, and there are no circumstances when breaching those duties is morally correct. This view is important for professional accountants because they are required to uphold the principles of their business. This view is important for professional accountants because they are required to uphold the principles in their professional code of ethics. A professional code of ethics may allow some exceptions to a rule, but globally, professional accountants are expected to act in accordance with their ethical code. Ethics of rights and justice. Another aspect of the deontological approach to ethics is the view that the rights of an individual in any situation should be protected and upheld, and the law should always be respected. For example, the rights of each party to a contract should always be upheld, and each party should carry out their undertakings under the terms of their contract. It is always right to comply with the law, and it is always wrong to break the law. Again, this is a view of ethics that many professional accountants will be familiar with. Main criticisms of non-consequential theories. The main criticisms of the non-consequential theory of ethics are that 1. It can be difficult to accept that a decision or action is morally right if it has undesirable consequences when an alternative course of action might offer beneficial consequences. 2. There may be situations when an individual's duties are in conflict with each other. For example, what should a professional accountant do when the principles of his or her professional code of ethics conflict with the company's code of corporate ethics? Situational ethics. Situational ethics is based on the view that what is right or wrong in any given situation depends on the circumstances of the situation. There are no universal rules of morality. Each situation is unique. Ethical decisions should therefore be taken on a case-by-case basis. There may be accepted general moral principles, such as the principles that it is wrong to kill or steal, but these should not be applied rigorously in all situations. The main criticisms of the situational theory of ethics are that 1. There is a lack of consistency in decisions about what is right or wrong, and 2. As a result, it can be changed that there are no ethical or moral guidelines at all. A look at ethical theories of relativism, absolutism, and subjectivism. Moral philosophers do not agree on the nature of morality. Two opposing views are absolutism and relativism. Absolutism. The ethical theory of absolutism or moral absolutism is that there are absolute moral values against which the morality of actions can be judged. Right and wrong are recognized by objective standards that apply universally to everyone. Plato was a philosopher who argued in favor of moral absolutism and in good that always holds its value. Absolutism might be associated with religious morality, but an individual can have an absolutist view of morality, without being religious. For example, an individual might believe that slavery, war, child abuse, and death penalty are all morally wrong and cannot be justified under any circumstances. A person who takes an ethical, absolutist view of a situation will judge right or wrong according to a clearly defined set of ethical principles that apply in all circumstances. For example, a person might consider that stealing money is always wrong, even if the amount stolen is quite small and the money is used to buy food for a starving family. Relativism. The ethical theory of relativism rejects the absolutist view. It states that there is no objective or absolute moral truth, and there are no universal standards of moral behavior. Morality is relative to the ethical norms that are accepted by society at the time and the culture of society. What is right in one society may be considered wrong in another, and what is considered wrong at one moment in time might be considered right several years later. There are several aspects to relativism. 1. Descriptive ethical relativism. This is the view that different cultures and societies have different ethical cultures and systems. Right and wrong are concepts that relate to the particular culture. There is no universal rule about right and wrong. 2. Normative ethical relativism. The beliefs or moral values within each culture are rights within that culture. It is impossible to judge the values of another culture externally or objectively. Moral values of a culture can only be judged from within the culture. Religious moral relativism. This is an example of normative ethical relativism and maintains that morality is determined and dependent on religious standpoints. However, it recognizes that no single religion is universally or exclusively true. Historical relativism is another example of normative ethical relativism and provides context for ethical views to vary over periods of time. For example, the elimination of suspected witches or the widespread adoption of slavery in the past may not be acceptable in today's society. Similarly, trends may move in the opposite direction. For example, the liberation of clothing fashions or the changing role of women in society. Relativism accepts that ethical behavior cannot be judged objectively. What is right and what is wrong can also vary according to circumstances. J.L. Mackie is a fairly recent moral philosopher who supported the relativist view. He argued that ethical values and moral judgments are a human intervention, which is supposed to be imposed on society by institutions. Now let's take a look at absolutism versus relativism. You might have your own view about which of these different approaches to making moral judgments is correct, either absolutism or relativism. Suppose that a manager is giving confidential information by an employee, which he promises to keep confidential and not to disclose to anyone else. In your opinion, would there be any circumstances in which the manager might break his promise and disclose the confidential information to someone else without the permission of the employee? The manager might take the view that having given a promise, he must keep it. A promise is given with the intention of keeping it, and there are no circumstances in which the manager will disclose the information to anyone else without the prior permission of the employee. This would be an absolutist view of ethics. Another scenario, the manager might take the view that having given his promise, there could be situations in which the information could be given to someone else without permission from the employee. This will be unethical behavior. 3. The manager might give a promise not to disclose the confidential information to anyone else, but in giving his promise, he might tell the employee that there are certain circumstances in which he might feel obliged to give the information to someone else and give an indication of what those circumstances might be, such as legal reasons. In this situation, the manager would be saying that the right thing to do could depend on the circumstances and situation. This would be a relativist view of ethics. It is therefore possible to take a moral position based on either an absolutist or a relativist view of morality. It's also possible to act unethically from both. Ethical subjectivism is a meta-ethical approach to morality. This is the view that what is wrong or right in any given situation is simply dependent on what people think about it. If society thinks that something is right, then it is right. And if society thinks that something is wrong, then it is wrong. Kohlberg's stages of moral development. Here we look at the 6 stages of moral reasoning and development: pre-conventional level of morality, conventional level of morality, post-conventional level of morality, the Heinz dilemma, and criticisms of Kohlberg's ideas. Now don't forget to subscribe now. The 6 stages of moral reasoning and development. Kohlberg is an American moral philosopher who developed the theory of moral behavior, which was first published in 1958. His theory attempted to explain the reasoning that makes individuals make their decisions when faced with a moral dilemma. He argued that all individuals go through steps or stages in their moral development. He identified 6 development stages that an individual might go through. Although most individuals do not go through all 6 in their life. The 6 stages are progressive. Individuals start at stage 1 and work upwards through higher stages as their life progresses. Each higher stage of moral reasoning is better at dealing with moral dilemmas than earlier stages. It is extremely rare for an individual having reached one stage to fall back to a lower stage of moral reasoning. And however, individuals do not act at all times at the highest stage of moral development that they have reached. Also, individuals cannot jump stages or miss any stage of development. For example, an individual cannot go from stage 3 to stage 5 without first going through stage 4. Kohlberg argued that the moral response of an individual to any moral dilemma or decision can be identified with one of the 6 stages. He divided the stages of moral development into 3 levels as follows. So the level of morality, he divided it into pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Then the stages, we have stage 1 through to 6. 1 being obedience and punishment, 2 self-interest, that's individualism and extreme, 3 interpersonal accord and conformity, that's good boy, nice girl attitude. Then 4 maintaining the social order, 5 social contract, then 6 universal ethical principles. Each of these stages will be explained as we proceed. Pre-conventional level of morality. A pre-conventional level of moral reasoning is common in children, although it can also be found in adults. Kohlberg called this level of reasoning pre-conventional because individuals at stages 1 and 2 do not see yet themselves as members of society, and their moral reasoning is based entirely on self. Stage 1, obedience and punishment orientation. At stage 1, individuals judge right and wrong on the basis of the direct consequences for them of the actions they take. 1. An action is bad if the individual knows that he or she will be punished for it. The worse the punishment, the greater the moral wrong. Also, an action is good if the individual knows that he will receive some benefits. The individual believes that there are powerful authorities who are able to give rewards and punishments for behavior. Stage 2. Individualism and exchange. At stage 2, the individual, often a child, recognizes that there is no single view of what is right and what is wrong. Different individuals have different points of view. Each individual is also free to pursue his or her own interests, that's personal interests, and will therefore want to do what is in his or her own best interest. When faced with a moral dilemma, the individual's decision is based on what's in it for me. The individual might show an interest in other people, but only to the extent that other people might help to further his own interest. A typical view in dealing with other people is, you help me and I'll help you. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Concern for others has nothing to do with loyalty to the other person, respect, or wanting to help them. It is based entirely on concern for oneself. Then we also have conventional level of morality. The conventional level of moral reasoning is typical of adolescent scenarios. When individuals think in a conventional way, they judge the morality of actions by comparing the actions with the conventional views and expectations of society. We have stage 3 and stage 4 under this: good interpersonal relationships. Individuals now enter society and see morality as more than making deals for personal benefit. They believe that they should live up to the expectations of family, friends, and community. They are aware of the approval or disapproval that they receive from other people and try to live up to their expectations. They enjoy respect and gratitude, and their moral outlook is based on how this will be obtained. You want to be a good boy or a nice girl. Good behavior means having good motives and feelings of love, trust, and concern for others. The actions of another person are often judged by the reasoning he means well. There is the fourth stage: maintaining social order. The moral reasoning at stage 3 is based largely on interpersonal relationships and feelings with family members and close friends, where it is possible to get to know the feelings and opinions of the other person very well and try to help them. At stage 4, the individual is concerned with society as a whole and the need to maintain social order. The focus is on respect for social conventions, authority, and obeying the law, because these are important for maintaining society. We also have the post-conventional level of morality. The post-conventional level of morality is also called the principled level. The individual now realizes that he is a person with his own views and not just a member of society. The individual does not accept that social connections are necessarily correct. However, this is a higher level of moral development than the pre-conventional level, because the individual takes a principled view, not a purely selfish view of right and wrong. Under the post-conventional level of morality, we have stage 5 and others. So we have the social contract orientation. At stage 5, individuals think about society differently from the conventional way. They take the view that a good society is one in which there is a social contract, in which everyone works towards the common benefits of society. They recognize that people are different and have the right to their own views and opinions. However, all rational-minded people should agree about 2 things. 1. All people should have certain basic rights that society will protect, such as life and freedom. 2. There should be some form of democratic procedure for changing laws that are unfair and for improving society. At stage 5, people talk about morality and rights from their own individual perspective, recognizing that other people might disagree, subject to the 2 points above. In contrast, individuals at stage 4 might think and talk about morality and rights because they belong to a social group, such as a religious group, that supports these concepts. Stage 4 individuals believe in rights because they are conforming to their group, not because they have reached their moral viewpoints individually. Stage 6, we have universal ethical principles. Kohlberg suggested that individuals very rarely reach stage 6 of moral development. At this stage, moral reasoning is based on abstract, universal ethical principles. The individual queries the validity of laws and considers that laws are only valid if they are based on justice. Individuals have an obligation to disobey unjust laws. An individual makes moral decisions because they are right, not because they are a means to an end or because the action is legal or unexpected. There are universal principles of justice requiring that all people should be treated impartially, in an equal manner and with dignity. For example, it is morally wrong to vote for a law that helps some people but hurts others. We go to the Heinz dilemma. Kohlberg used a number of fictional case studies involving a moral dilemma to establish the stage of moral development and reasoning that an individual had reached. One of these case studies, the Heinz dilemma, provides a good illustration of Kohlberg's analysis. In this example, you should note that individuals at the same stage of moral development can reach differing views of right and wrong. Kohlberg was interested in the moral reasoning that individuals use to justify their opinions rather than the actual decision that they reach through reasoning. The case study. The Heinz dilemma is based on the fictional case of a man, Heinz, whose wife is suffering from cancer and close to death. There is one drug that doctors think might save her. This is a drug that a scientist in the same town has recently discovered. The drug is expensive to produce, but the price charged for the drug by the scientist is 10 times its production cost. The scientist paid $200 and was charging $2,000 for a small dose. Heinz wanted to buy the drug for his wife, but had very little money. He went to everyone he knew to obtain the money to buy the drug, but could raise only $1,000. He told the scientist about his wife's medical condition and that he would raise $1,000. He could raise $1,000. He asked the scientist to let him buy the drug at that price or let him pay the rest of the money later. The scientist refused, saying that he had discovered the drug and intended to make money from producing it. Heinz, in desperation, broke into the scientist's premises to steal the drug for his wife. The question asked by Kohlberg were: 1. Should Heinz have broken into the scientist's premises to steal the drug? 2. Why or why not? Analysis of the case study. For Kohlberg, it was not important what an individual would do in the situation faced by Heinz, but how he or she reacted or reached an opinion. The moral reasoning was more important than the decision or action that results from it. Examples of some of the arguments that might be used by individuals at each stage of moral development are set out below. Stage of moral development, then we have possible reasoning. So 1. Obedience and punishments. Heinz should not steal the drug because if he does, he will be put in prison. Under the first phase, the obedience and punishments, they are of the view that this would be very bad, or Hines should steal the drug. It only cost $200 and he offered to pay a lot more. He was only stealing the drug, nothing else. Then with the stage 2, self-interest, Hines should not steal the drug because if he does, he will go to prison. Prison is a terrible place and he will suffer a lot if he goes there, more than if his wife dies. Or Hines should steal the drug because if he does, he will be very happy even if he had to spend some time in jail. Under the third stage of moral development, that's interpersonal accord, their possible reasoning is Hines should not steal the drug because stealing is bad and Hines is not a criminal, or you can't blame him, he did everything he could first without breaking the law, or Hines should steal the drug. He's a good husband and his wife will expect him to do it. Then for the fourth stage, maintaining social order, Hines should not steal the drug because stealing is against the law, or Hines should steal the drug because he should also face up to the consequences and take the punishment for the crime. You can see why he did it, but breaking the law has its consequences. You can't let criminals go around doing whatever they want. The fifth stage, social contract. Their possible reason is Hines should not steal the drug because the scientist has a right to fair compensation. Even though his wife is near death, Hines is not justified in stealing. Or Hines should steal the drug regardless of the law because everyone has a right to life. That's so bad. Then the sixth stage, universal ethical principles. We are of the reasoning that Hines should not steal the drug. If he does, this means that someone else will not be able to buy it and that person might need it just as much as Hines' wife. Their lives are just as important, or Hines should steal the drug because saving a human life is more and much more important than respect for someone's property rights. Criticisms of Kohlberg's ideas. Some of the criticisms of Kohlberg's ideas are interesting and have relevance to concepts of business ethics, especially for global companies, and professional ethics, especially for professional bodies with global membership. Some critics have argued about the view that post-conventional morality exists or is at a higher level of moral development. At stages 5 and 6, individuals put their own principles above society and the law, which is a dangerous moral stance to take. Two other critics have argued that Kohlberg's views have a cultural bias because his ideas are based on Western philosophy. His views might not apply to non-Western philosophies and cultures. Carol Gilligan, 1982, argued that Kohlberg's views had a gender bias and were based on the male view of the world. Kohlberg argued that moral thinking is based on reasoning linked to a sense of justice, thus rules, rights, and abstract principles. Gilligan argued that for women, morality and ethical views are not based on these concepts of justice, but of concern for interpersonal relationships and the ethics of care and compassion. Duly, we will end here. If you have not subscribed, do subscribe and share your comments. Cheers. We'll continue later. I sincerely thank you for being in my space.